the evening, the guest for the evening was the guest on the podcast was LL Cool J. Good morning. Hi, YouTubers. We're talking about, on Tea Time this morning, we're talking about identifying whether you're mentally weak and then, how to cure it, basically. Right. So, um, LL Cool J was on Club Shay Shay, and there was a clip. I have to find it so I can share it in my stories because I was just fully drawn into this clip. Right, LL Cool J was talking about being self-reliant. Was that it? Self-reliant, self-validating. Yes, LL Cool J was talking about being self-validating, and and I was just listening to him just kind of talk about what self-validation means to him, and how it shows up in your life, etc. And I was like, oh, this would be such a good topic for tea time, because I know that there are different areas in my life where I was not using self-validation, and I started to kind of weave that together with the things that happened in my life that created mental breakdown to the point of clinical depression and anxiety and having to go see a psychiatrist and be on medication and all kind of things. So I started to think about, well, what was it that really created that breakdown? What was it that made my mental weakness um, cause me to have to get help, right? And I think for a long time, and even still now, I think, right? Even now, I think that there is still there may still be some negative connotation around um, mental illness. Like, in Jamaica, it's about the mad people, madman and maduman, and they have the place where the hospital for persons who are mentally ill is Bellevue. And I remember when I was growing up in Jamaica, there was just a lot of very negative uh, connotation around Bellevue and anything that had to do with or was associated with that hospital. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, I'm taking somebody up to UE or University of West Indies Hospital, or oh my gosh, I'm taking somebody to Medical Associates. When you hear, oh my gosh, I'm taking somebody to Bellevue, it's like, whoa. It wasn't a pleasant thing. And then I think a large part of that is that in Jamaica, there's a lot of, there used to be more, I think, a lot of persons who are mentally ill that walk the streets, and they are not wearing proper clothes. Some of them walk naked. They look disheveled. They look dirty. And that created this very negative. And this is primarily in Kingston, by the way. I'll tell you something about that in a minute. And then on the flip side, when I was living in North America, I became familiar with Ward 21. And if you watch like any of those movies where there's a particular floor on the hospital that you see them having therapy sessions, and what you associate that with now is seeing people with the what do you call it, the straight jacket. They got on a straight jacket, and it's just very negatively, or used to be very negatively painted. And so, of course, if those are the pictures and the images that people have of mental illness, then when somebody tells you that you have a mental illness, um, and that you need to get help or you need to go to the hospital, the first thing that is coming to your mind are the things that you would have seen, right? Like that's the first thing that's coming to your mind. So you're gonna be kind of like, no, I don't want to go to Ward 21, or I don't want to go to Bellevue. You're gonna have this negative connotation about it. But here's the kicker. Here is the catch 22, 25, 26, right? The kicker is that for a lot of persons, especially with the pandemic, there has been so much suffering from mind dis-ease. That's literally what it is. It's when your mind is not at ease, right? And it starts with mental weakness. Before you get to mental illness, you have mental weakness. And what I was thinking was, man, if we could identify where we are mentally weak, then that could really help us with solutioning for making sure that we are strengthening our mindsets and doing that work, right? So that's actually, I got really excited about it, guys. Like, I couldn't wait to come and talk on tea time this morning. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait. I have all the things. I see my cards. I'm just gonna grab them. Give me 1 second. Oh no. Okay, well, this was a trick. I see my card box. Okay, that's fine. I'll share a card after on stories. Hey, we're talking about how you know if you're mentally weak and how you're going to navigate it, right? So, if mental weakness is the precursor to mental illness, then it would serve all of us to make sure that we know whether we're mentally weak or not. And some of us, because we have strong personalities, and people tell us that we seem strong, some of us, because we have those masks on every day, we figure, oh, I'm good, I got this. And can I tell you that a lot of persons who present themselves to the world as mentally strong, and people think that they're such bosses, whether you're a lady boss or a guy boss, you're the ones that are typically struggling with mental weakness challenges, or you're struggling with different types of life issues, and you're not managing them well enough. So it's taking you on that path to needing help, to needing that support, because you might end up, really suffering from a lot of anxiety, or because you end up really having to manage a lot of depression or depressed moments. And when I was getting ready for the episode, guys, and I was thinking, well, how did this show up in your life? I had so many different ways that it was showing up in my life, but I didn't understand it. It didn't occur to me at the time that these were signs of mental weakness. Furthermore, I had no thinking that I was going to be going to a psychiatrist and she was going to say to me, yeah, you have some mental illness issues. We're going to have to put you either in Ward 21 or on medication, right? So you don't have to wait for moments like that to shake you up and hide from maybe some feelings or thoughts that you're having. No, that could actually be indicators that your mind is not at ease, your mind is in dis-ease, and therefore you need to start paying closer attention to yourself. So the first thing I thought that we could look at is being able to identify whether or not you're mentally weak. I think that's a great place to start, especially if you are a strong-willed, strong personality person. If you are a strong-willed, strong personality person and you just got this life and, whatever, you have it all together, right? You're doing the things, you're taking care of your parents, you're taking care of your kids, you're taking care, whatever. Then this is great for you because it will help you to really kind of narrow down whether or not you are navigating uh, mental weakness. Yeah? Okay. So if you haven't got your tea yet, grab your tea. I'm doing my usual English breakfast. I think I'm going to actually probably make some tea, guys, because when I say make some tea, meaning like have my own brand of tea, because I drink tea constantly. If I was like manufacturing, it would be a lot easier. Right? So get your tea or your coffee and let's get chatting about all of these things. Okay. So last week, October 10th, Mental Health Awareness Day. Most persons would have been posting, talking about their journeys, trying to remove the stigma of mental illness. And especially when you are a high performer, it's something that you don't even pay attention to. So we're going to talk about it this morning, right? You have different types of systems that you can put in place to actually support developing mental strength and longevity, and avoiding dis-ease in the mind, and allowing yourself to step fully into greatness. So I found this amazing quote, which when I heard it and thought about it being applied to being mentally weak, I was like, yeah, that really, really says it, right? So here's the quote: the same wind that feeds a forest fire extinguishes a candle. Let me read that again. The same wind that feeds a forest fire extinguishes a candle. I don't know if you guys got that. I don't know if you guys got that. In other words, the first test to determine whether you are mentally weak or strong is to look across the four corners of your life: health, wealth, love, and self expression, which is career or your creative passions, whatever, right? Look across those areas and see if you have areas where, boy, you're just going at it, like you're fanning the flames of your life. And then other areas where it's literally like if a breeze blow too hard, you pop right down. That's what it means. The same wind that fires the same wind that fuels a forest fire also can extinguish a candle. Literally means that the same force of life that can have you being massively successful at what you're doing in life in any of those four corners is the same wind that can also be pulling you down, and it pulls you down when you are not mentally strong. All right. And for many of us, when we are thinking about our lives and how we're doing, like we're balling or we're not balling or whatever, we don't pay attention truly to the thoughts that we're having to determine whether or not we're avoiding parts of our life because we can't keep the flames going. Our thoughts are extinguishing the fire that makes our lives thrive. Now, I'm going to give you 3 examples, right, of how you can know that you are succumbing to mental weakness. And all you got to do, guys, there's never any judgment here. Okay. All you got to do is just investigate, self-observe. That's what mindfulness is. It is being present to self, observing yourself. And it starts with observing your thoughts. If you can't go to the observing your actions and your reactions, right? So when you are mentally weak, what has really happened? It's not your fault. That's I always like to start off by that. It's not your fault. When you're mentally weak, it's because the systems and the habits that you've grown up with have not facilitated your ability to build strength in all the mindful corners of your life, right? You've essentially been exposed to systems and beliefs and habits that you inherited that over time just got you in a rhythm. And those are the things that create the mental weakness gaps across different areas of your life. Okay. So if you are recognizing that there's some parts of your life that aren't working, or it might seem like it's working for a little bit of time and then all of a sudden it just start to pop down, or all of a sudden the fire goes out, that is an area where there's some mental weakness practices going on. There's some mental weakness habits at play. There's some mental weakness systems that you still have running that you didn't even realize you had running. How do I know this? Because, hello, I'm like mental weakness observer, patient one, like literally, right? So here are a couple of, um, I'm giving you three different ways to identify. First way, you tend to spend your time focusing on external factors that affect your life rather than focusing on the internal fuel that fires up your life. Oh, I'm going to say that again. You tend to spend your time focusing on the external factors that affect your life rather than focusing on the internal fuel that fires up your life. What do you mean by that, Stacey? You're talking in parables. Come on. Okay, I'm gonna tell you. I used to be very externally focused, not for my work, not in my self-expression career space. No, their boss always, from ever since, but to just have a sick work ethic. I was just always like, yeah, on it, right? Not in my self-expression life corner, no. But you see, in the love space, the intimate love space, oh my gosh, I was such a people pleaser. It was always about the other person, right? In my case, the other man, the man, or, based on when I started thinking about love, the boy, right? And what happens here is that it's an easy thing to spot because you are so focused on what other people think and satisfying other people's agenda for your life that you default to doing whatever it takes to make sure that they are okay so that you can feel okay. Does that sound familiar in any area of your life? Just think about it. It could even be with your kids, guys. Think about it. Mental weakness shows up when you are focused on the external factors affecting your life rather than the internal fire that's fueling your life. And this may be that you get fixated on things you can't control because external factors are things you cannot control. You have zero control over what is happening outside of you, unless, you're working some manifestation magic that's just next level. You don't have control over that, right? What you can control, however, is the energy that you bring to any and every situation and how you decide to show up, how you decide to show out as it relates to these external factors. And one of the great ways that you can actually check yourself on this, check yourself on whether or not you're actually stepping into this way of being mentally weak, is you can check how reactive you are to external factors. Right? That's what you can do. You can check yourself by looking at what makes you react. Right? What is it that gets under your skin, that annoys you, that kind of pokes at you when something external happens? Okay. Ray says sounds too familiar, right? Yes, definitely. I'm gonna give you an example. It's gonna seem like a funny example, guys, but it's gonna show you how um how this mental weakness or whatever thing shows up in all different kind of ways, right? So I've been saving up. I like this soda called Apple J. And I've been saving up my Apple J soda. I bought two, right? I bought one for myself and I bought one for Honeyboo because I know that he likes it too. Put them in the cupboard. I actually forgot that I had bought the Apple J and was saving it up. When you save up things, especially food, you save up the food so much you forget to take that in. Okay. So that was me with my Apple J. And then last night, I was eating this having this amazing meal, right? And I was so thirsty. It's like, oh my God, what am I gonna drink? What am I gonna drink? Remember that then open the cupboard, see the apple juice. Yes, but it was just one that was left. So clearly, somebody had had theirs already. No problem. I'm gonna have my apple juice. So I go no, and it was hot, right? So I said, all right, I'm just gonna get some ice and I'm gonna pour my apple J, have it there, and then I'm gonna put the rest of the apple J in the refrigerator so that it can get cold. So that by the time I go back now, I don't even need the glass with ice. I can just drink the other half from the bottle. Now, keep in mind, guys, the apple J bottle is about this big. It's very small. So even making it half and half is just silly. But I was really excited and looking forward to having this little drink. Sit down, watching a little movie with Honey Boo, drink my first thing apple thing. So he gets up, he's moving around, he's doing whatever. I actually put the apple j in the back of the refrigerator behind all the things and like fully gatekeeping, okay, fully gatekeeping. Lo and behold, I get up now at intermission, Netflix intermission, and I go to the refrigerator excited. Apple j gone. Now, if y'all love food the way I do, you know I was having a reaction to this external situation that I could not control. But let me get back to the whole mental weakness thing. Okay, you see, old Stacy, before examining herself and observing and all that, old Stacy would have proper vex, like proper vex. Old Stacy would have made the fact that Honeyboo drank the second half of her apple j, that he does not care about me, him selfish. What like I would have gone down the rabbit hole of all the things that he's not, to eventually make myself so upset that it would more than likely create an argument and therefore cause challenges in my relationship. And I would then be finding if old Stacy would also have these little niggling things that would just pick at, right? No. What I will say is that I did have a reaction. First of all, I was like, maybe somebody else had it. No such luck. When I finally was like, did you treat my ears? Like, yeah. I was like, okay. Intermission was the end of the movie for me. I just went back upstairs. Like, I went to my room. I was done. I was fit to be tied. It was over. And I observed myself and all my thoughts. And then I was like, okay, you're being a bit silly. You can always get more apple j. Like you start to kind of put yourself through that thinking. Because I really couldn't control it at that point. What's the sense in me wallowing in upset the entire night? And then, I just don't end up having the kind of hug up and cuddle up in the bed that I would want later on. Right? So I know that example may seem silly, guys, or very simple, silly or simple. I don't know. But the reason I'm using that is because we do things like that every day, and we respond so much. We get stuck in that external situation, and our mind just goes down these downward spirals, and it's like literally like you can't nothing about it. It's like you're just stuck. Okay, and that is a strong indicator of mental weakness. So that's factor number one: focusing on external factors that you can't control instead of focusing on your internal fuel, which of course that's the only thing you have control over, is the energy that you have inside yourself that you can then use to propel you towards what you actually want. Okay. The second thing that is an indicator of mental weakness is also not being mindful about the way that you prepare yourself for the everyday life. And what I mean by that is you don't spend enough time building systems that support transforming your mind and your life. You have no methodology for managing your mindset. when you have no methodology for managing your mindset, it just leaves your mind to the whims of the world and whatever is going to show up on that day to manage that mental space. So, of course, if you think about your physical structure and the strength of the physical structure, if you think about that, you can look at how, like, the workout and the gymming and the smoothing and just that whole mental wellness space has just completely exploded. And a large part of that is because people are very focused on that external wellness. And I mean, people want to live longer. People want to live longer. They want to be physically fit. You want to look good. Some people just vain and them just want the body, right? Some people, it's about the social media, have the IG girl body. I went through that phase for like 5 minutes and then I was like, no, it's not happening. It's not sustainable over here in my 40s. It's just not happening, right? But if you think about how much effort and time is spent in the gym, I mean, and you're looking in the mirror and you're doing all the jigs, I'm going to be doing some kind of physical work now because I decided I'm jumping Carnival in Jamaica in 2025. I was going to do both Trinidad and Jamaica, but I have a trip now that I'm going to do in February, so I can't do Trinidad Carnival again. But I know the pain of ripping the muscle and putting it back together and getting this structure going. I've joined several gyms and I've failed miserably at it. I can tell you, when it comes to that physical part, I am definitely physically weak. May I work on it, guys? May I work on it, honestly? It's on my list. It's been on every list every year. May I just, all right. Yeah. So people put systems in place to build physical strength. They have an entire methodology around their diet. They have a methodology around the times of day that they train, who their trainer is, whether them doing HIIT or them doing spinning or they're doing, weight training. Them have the apps. They have better me or whatever, yoga lattes. There's just a whole lot of stuff that's happening. And clothing, Under Armour has a whole thing based on this fitness. Like, there's just a lot of it. That's basically what I'm getting at. And you may be participating in that system. You may have your own physical fitness system, but you don't have a mental. You don't have a mental system for yourself. You do not have a build mental strength system. You do not have a methodology for building your mental wellness. And maybe if you're coming to tea time, I'm a part of your system. You may not know it, but yeah, that's because that's what we do here. We're building the muscles to avert or avoid mental weakness. Okay? So if you have systems in place for your physical well-being, then you have to have systems in place for your mental well-being. It just does not make sense for you to have all these methodologies that are applied to your external self, but then your internal self is popping right down. Right? So you have to build routines and systems that are consistent, that you use in your life over and over again, because you're not going to just on one hand be having mental wellness or let me not say mental weakness show up in your life. You're not going to be reactive. You're not going to be procrastinating. You're not going to be, not a person of your word, right? Inauthentic, slow to commit, not good at keeping agreements. You're not going to be doing all of those things when you are actively using methodologies to build your mindset and to transform your life. All right. So that's item number 2. Item number 3, how you can identify whether you're mentally weak. is that you can't apply a positive perspective to a problem. We talk about that on this show all the time. And I was listening to one of the teachers that I follow, and he raised this particular item. You don't apply positive perspective to problems. And for some of us, this is a big area of issue. Some of us will get so stuck. We're constantly stuck in trying to validate the problem because we need to be right. That is one of the simplest ways that you can actually see where you do not apply a positive perspective to a problem. You get stuck in being right. If you're confronted by a situation, especially with other people, you spend so much of your time trying to be right. You spend so much of your time trying to make the other person wrong, as opposed to looking at this particular problem and saying, what can I learn from this? What can I extract from this that could actually help me? Right? Another way that you can look at this is like finances. When you face a financial setback, it's so easy to spiral into panic or hopelessness. But what happens is when you're sat in those places, it limits your ability to see the opportunity for growth or for learning. Now, when it comes to finances, guys, I totally get it. I shared on this show many, many a times that I have gone through so many dips with building wealth, right? Based on just the story of my life unfolding, based on just the way that mental weakness has created all these different challenges to help me to become mentally strong, right? And what happens is you don't understand that you are actually the creator of the problem that you're trying to get away from, because you're so sat in the poverty of the problem. We have more than enough evidence that when it comes to money, it is all mindset. We have more than enough evidence. It's mindset, energy, and then there's a tangible piece of it. But that's where it starts. It starts with your mind. And so that's why the mental strength piece and building those muscles is so important, because when you're sat in a space of hopelessness or panic or fear and you can't get to a possibility, especially when it relates to money, you can't get to that possibility thinking, you just find yourself in this cycle of scarcity and of problems and of really poverty. Or robbing Peter to pay Paul for the rest of your life. Yeah? So what you want to do is you want to be able to reframe. We talk about reframing all the time. You want to be able to reframe the problems through a lens of possibility. And it's not that I'm trying to be positive Polly, because life actually presents you with these situations so that you will grow and expand. It's just that simple. You are here for the growth of it. You're not just here to sit down and just complain and criticize and be concerned the entire life journey. No, you are presented with problems so that you can actually find the possibility in it. That's the whole reason we're here. And it is through those possibility moments that you actually create these magnificent experiences. You create these magnificent points of access to the life that you really want. So if you identify yourself in any of these three areas, right, that means that you are in need of some mental strength training. Coming to tea time is one of them, or watching tea time after the fact is one of the ways that you can strengthen your mindset. Okay. But it's really important for you to have a system in place, I believe, that will actually help you with navigating this. So at the beginning of tea time, I was talking about LL Cool J and how LL Cool J was talking about self validation, and he was so passionate about it, and just saying that he don't need nobody to validate him. He's fully validated all on his own. It's not necessary. You don't need to come over here and tell me how great I am, because I tell myself how great I am every day. Self validation is actually the perfect cure for mental weakness. Self validation is one of the systems that you can put in place to help to build up habits that will give you the muscle for managing your mental strength development. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually share with you a formula for self validation. It has 6 steps. Okay. It has 6 steps. And I would encourage you to go and watch. I'm going to see if I can find the clip, guys, and I'm going to actually post it in my stories. But I'm gonna see if I can find the clip with LL Cool J, because it was so powerful to hear him talking about self-validation. But self-validation is the cure for mental weakness. Now, remember again, the three ways that mental weakness can show up in your life. Way number one, it shows up because you are more focused on external factors that you can't control than the internal fuel that drives your reactions and the way that you live your life. Number two is that you don't build methodologies to support mental strength. And number three, you don't know how to apply a positive perspective to problems that enter your life. So we're going to talk about the actionable strategies now that you can use to reclaim your mental strength and to really make sure that you are using that self-validation and not seeking validation from anybody or anything. Because self-validation is not just from other people. It's not because your boss tell you, say you're doing such a great job, or because your lover tell you, say you look so good and oh my God, you're amazing, or because your kids tell you that you're the best mom ever, or your parents tell you that they're so proud of you, or your people on your social media platforms give you 100,000 likes and your post go viral. Those are all external validation things. And what happens to a lot of people is when they don't get those external validation things, their entire life, it just start feel like it's not worthwhile. Oh, especially the social media stuff. And that one is one of the ones that I think many persons who are in this space of sharing themselves and sharing lessons and so forth online, many of us, myself included, have struggled with. For me, it was in the past. Because you're just looking for validation that somebody out there cares, and therefore the work that you're doing by showing up online is worthwhile. Well, guess what? In the dawn of 2025, which is what we're approaching, you don't need nobody else telling you. You don't need one like. I know everybody I go like we, but still we irie. Cause we no love like. Go listen to that song. Chronics. We do it for the love, we not do it for the like. All right, let me stop messing around. Okay. So let's talk about self-validation, right? You have your notes, notebook, journal, whatever. First thing with self-validation is you want to acknowledge your feelings. I talk about this all the time. Be present to yourself. If you are present to yourself, you're not going to be able to validate yourself. You have to observe yourself. You have to see what your thoughts are telling you about you. And it's something that can be very subtle that you might miss it. Most of the world is missing it. You have to acknowledge your feelings, acknowledge what you're feeling in any given moment. You have to start off by recognizing what you're feeling without judging yourself. You could be feeling fear, you could be feeling frustration, anger, whatever it is in that moment where you don't feel at ease. in yourself. Just observe a little bit and acknowledge the feeling that is there. And you're not acknowledging it so that it can be an excuse for bad behavior. You're acknowledging it so that you can now self validate. Remind yourself that it's okay. I feel anxious about this presentation that I have to do, but it's okay. I know that anxious energy is something that is healthy and is sometimes normal, and I know that I'm going to use this to help propel me forward. All right. Next, accept your experience. Accept the thoughts and feelings as a part of the current experience. It does not mean that it can't change. Don't dismiss things or criticize yourself for them. Acceptance allows you to step into the possibility of what else could be there. Because if you can accept that this feeling is here, then you can accept that another feeling is available to you. So it's another way that you can affirm yourself that this is normal and I accept it as part of the process. This is just a part of the process. So you're self-validating as you're going through it. So you're acknowledging, you're accepting, and then now we can start to talk about affirmations, right? You want to reaffirm yourself by looking at your strengths. Some of us don't even know our strengths. That's part of it. We haven't taken the time to actually sit down and write a brag bank for ourselves. Write out what is really good about you. Many of us don't do it because we don't even know what we like about ourselves. You do the exercise, you sit down and actually just like, yeah, what do I like about me? And just write about yourself. Some of us believe that doing that is actually vain or egotistical. No, it's not. Show yourself some love. We can spend so much time pouring out into others that we sometimes forget that it starts with us. You have to reaffirm your strength. If it's hard for you to figure out what you think about yourself, maybe you draw from what other persons have said about you. Remind yourself of your capability to navigate challenges because somebody has said, boy, you did really well with that. Look at how many different difficult situations you have overcome. Look at how many difficult situations you have been able to adapt to. Those are all ways to reaffirm your sense of self, sense of strength. I say, talk to yourself, boy, I've handled worse situations than this. I've gotten beyond more challenging times than this. I have the skills to manage my life. I know I can manage my life. Like, you have to start doing that self-validation work. So reaffirm your strengths. And reaffirming your strengths, you want to reframe your negative thoughts. So those thoughts that keep cycling back, it's like they just literally sometimes they can feel like a plague of flies that just you can't get out of them because they just keep circling back. Okay, the thoughts are gonna come. So what am I gonna do with the thought when it comes? I'm gonna reframe it. I actually actively do that. When I see myself in a moment of mental weakness, I will sit with the negative thoughts and be like, what's another way I could think about that? Instead of thinking, I'm not ready. I'm not ready for this next big thing. I can maybe focus on, boy, I'm prepared. I did my best to get to this point, and I'm going to grow from the experience. I know I don't feel ready, but I know that I am ready on some level. I wouldn't have gotten to this point if I wasn't ready on some level. Right? So you can see the thoughts happening and you just want to reframe in the moment. Sometimes I really do sit down and do that reframing. Sometimes if it's too hard to reframe just in my mind, I will get my journal out and I will start to write. Then you want to give yourself some grace. I think people, especially with us experiencing the Gen Z group of folks becoming adults now, I think there's a lot of disdain for giving yourself grace because research has so shown that this generation in particular really does show themselves a lot of self-compassion, which in my generation, We didn't really do that. We never know nothing about self-compassion. It was about grit, going and getting it and doing what you needed to do, right? So when you are self-validating and you are really seeking to shift from mental weakness to mental strength, you need to give yourself grace. You need to show yourself self-compassion. It's okay if it's not perfect. Done is better than perfect. That's another way to give yourself compassion. You're on a deadline and you're trying to get all the tweaks and things and you're stressing out and you're cussing yourself and you're doing all of the things that are not really expressing positive mindset. It's like, no, you know what? Done is better than perfect. I'm doing my best, and in this moment, that's enough. That's self-compassion. And last but not least, you have to take some action. You cannot validate yourself in your closet every day. You have to take some outward action to show that you believe in you. Apply for the job. Raise your hand up. Stand up. Speak up. You have to learn to validate yourself outwardly by taking actions that align with the things that you value in life, align with the growth that you're trying to create for yourself, no matter how small that action step may be. Okay? So, the self-validation formula: acknowledge your feelings, accept the experience that you're in, reaffirm the strengths that you already have inherent within you, reframe the negative thoughts, don't just let them keep running around, encourage self-compassion, giving yourself some grace, and then take some action, take empowered action towards validating who you are choosing to be in this life. Once you start to strengthen that inner validation and rely less on external factors, whether it's people factors or is, you know, alcohol or whatever other chemical cocktail you might use to make you feel like everything is okay, right? The more you get into that inner validation, the less you'll need the external things or people, and the more you can actually start to take control of your life and create more success and opportunity in your life. Okay? So thanks so much for joining me today, guys, on Tea Time. It was great talking about mental weakness and how this actually is the starting point for the dis-ease that happens in your mind that then leads to mental illness. Okay? I encourage you to actually go check out Club Shay Shay's LL Cool J episode. I really enjoyed it, and the segment on self-validation was so good. I think LL just really spoke all the things, right? He just broke it down. It was giving life. Okay. And I will see you guys next week on another episode of Tea Time. So have a great Saturday. Have a great week ahead. All right. Take care. Take care.